Come bring us in now.
So good. You can go anytime.
Well, this is another episode of How Stupid People Succeed. You heard one of them, and that's Jeremy, and I am Josh. This is just another episode, a little podcast that we're doing.
What should they do if they like this podcast?
Well, they should probably share it, for one. Maybe comment, listen to it, subscribe to it. We're on Apple iTunes and all your other favorite podcast platforms, right?
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Pretty close?
Yeah, no, platforms is the right word.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So we're talking about a little rejection today.
Yes, rejection. Get familiar with it, get comfortable with it. So let me ask you this.
Why?
Why should you get comfortable with it?
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
I thought so.
When you can deal with rejection, that you're getting closer to success. I think if you're not finding yourself in a position of rejection in some form or another, you're probably not pushing yourself as much as you could. Okay. So
I could buy into
if you're not seeing failure, or if you're not seeing rejection, you're not really pushing the boundaries of what you're trying to accomplish, and you're probably driven by some level of insecurity that causes you to be so terrified of rejection that then it causes you to be a condensed version of yourself. The problem becomes a lot of us fall into the lie or the image that is success. So me being successful means I fail less and I'm rejected less. And that's really not true. So the feeling
Kind of.
In what way?
Because if you're failing less, obviously you're succeeding. So you're clearly talking about a more philosophical idea.
Well, okay, so define failure, define rejection.
I thought that's what we're doing here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying define it though.
So if I go on a listening appointment, I don't want to lose it. But if I do lose it, I'm going to learn from it.
Yes.
But I want to win far more than I fail.
But before the listing appointment, what else are you trying to do to generate more listing appointments?
You're trying to leverage it. You're trying to prepare for it. Trying to wow them.
But before that, how do you get the phone to ring? Or the email to come in or whatever?
Marketing, word of mouth. And
yes.
So, I mean, like you put a lot of work in.
So the vast majority of your marketing is failing miserably. The thousands of impressions you get monthly on all of your social media posts to get a handful of people, you're getting rejected and you're failing miserably in social.
Well, percentage wise, yes.
Yes. So like baseball, you get 1 out of 3. Guess what? You're going to the Hall of Fame, even though you have failed twice as much as you've succeeded. But what you've done is you've also separated yourself in increasing your failure and your rejection rate. So you're going, how do I grow my business? I better get busy about getting rejected and failing, because I know the faster I speed that up, the faster I get to more sales.
Yeah.
So it's understanding kind of the makeup. It's not being an idiot, right? It's not just like, oh, let me find a way to sabotage. I'm not saying sabotage, which I think is completely different, right, than fail or success. Fail or success is they're yin and yang. They should go hand in hand. One equates to the other. If you're always succeeding, then you're never really failing, and then you're never really succeeding. Does that make sense?
You just put a lot on that plate.
So what makes Michael Jordan's 6 championships so special?
Because he went to play baseball.
No. Well, that in the middle of it, yes. But before that, what else? He couldn't get past the Celtics, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Pistons. And he had the entire country building up to this point of, he won his first championship when he was what, 30?
No.
28?
Probably.
Let me see. He came into the league in 1982, won his first championship in 1991. So that's basically in his 10th season or 9th season, whatever it works out to be. He graduated his junior year, so he's probably 20. Yeah, so he was 30.
No.
When he won his first championship. So for a 9-10 year period in the NBA.
Can we get that fact checked?
Yeah, fact check it. A 9 to 10 year season.
I want to reject him.
NBA veteran, defensive champ, scoring champ, slam dunk champ, all-star MVP, MVP of the league, the tongue, the shoes, the apparel, everything was in full swing at that time. And it takes him that long to get to a championship. But once he figured out how to win a championship, he didn't let go of it, which I think is also just incredible.
28.
There we go. 28. 28.
So close.
But being 28, I don't. How old was LeBron when he won his first championship with the Heat? Probably younger.
Which hairline was that?
It was way back. It was way back.
I wish I
There
had
it
that
is. You nailed it. You got the hairline.
Yeah.
But for most of us, we don't like the feeling of rejection. And so when we get rejected, we want to escape that feeling as fast as possible. And then it causes us to not want to face rejection again because we don't want to face that feeling. When in a big part of that is not understanding. I mean, I don't think you can ever turn that part off. Like rejection sucks, period. Rejection hurts sometimes, period. There's no way around it. We have an emotional, innate human nature reaction to rejection. So when you're feeling that and you know, hey, this is part of what I want to do to be successful, or this is part of what I want out of this relationship or whatever, and you're feeling that sense of rejection and it's frustrating, it hurts, it exposes insecurities. How do you kind of manage that and deal with that to kind of get back after it? To not have it really like damage your confidence either, right? So like, hey, I can do this.
Well, you can look at the business, for instance, right? You look at the grand scheme of business, right? And I think rejection, depending on how you look at it, it can look in, it's various different, wears various different outfits. So, in business, it's all about numbers, right? Mm-hmm. You talk to this many people, you're going to set this many appointments, and you're going to make this many sales, right? So it's all based on numbers. So you want to eliminate a lot of the no's so you can get to the yeses. But you look at someone, for instance, let's say, they're going on job interviews, right? They have several job interviews lined up. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they don't want to hear a no, but if they're hearing a no, they have the opportunity to sit back and reflect on why.
Yeah.
Hopefully people are doing that.
Yeah.
And trying to learn and critique themselves from that. So I have a really good example of, I'll say, being rejected, even though I don't know it's actually being rejected yet. But so last night, Rafe had baseball tryouts for a travel baseball team. And he hasn't really played much in, the last year and a half just because of COVID. The baseball year last year was cut short. And then moving into this year, obviously we didn't have it for COVID. So we're past regular baseball season. So he's coming in here just super raw, right? And Rafe's a very athletic kid. He's very coordinated. But he's getting out there with kids who have played travel ball for the last 2 years. Now, granted, they're a grade and 2 grades older than him. But you could tell the differences in what Rafe had as opposed to some of the top kids on that team. Like he was somewhere probably middle, maybe lower end on the scale of kind of like how they performed. But, the top kids as opposed to the kids that haven't done it, you could really tell like what they're working on, right? So, kind of the rejection aspect of it. So let's say he doesn't make the team. And honestly, I really don't want him to make the team because it's a 9U team. I want him to play 8U because 8U's coach pitch, 9U's kid pitch.
When you say 8U, that's just the age, right? 8 years old. Okay.
Yep. 8 and under, 9 and under. And so I want him to play the 8U. But it was a good experience for him.
Yeah.
So he came home last night from the tryout and he wanted to go throw ball and he wanted to practice outside.
Awesome.
So like all that stuff, like he knew that he wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
So, and even today, coming back, my father-in-law was at the house and, so like they've been practicing all day.
Yeah.
And so, like that excites me as a dad, just from not necessarily the standpoint or the sports standpoint, but in life, if it's something that you don't do your best at, what are you going to do to get better? So you have that rejection in front of you. You're going to fight through it and you're going to make it a successful thing in the midst of the rejection.
Yeah.
And hopefully everyone does that. I'm sure everyone doesn't, but you can blame a lot of things, but if you don't self-reflect and be like, okay, well, what can I do? Instead of just because he could have been like, well, these kids have literally played on the same team for 2 years. They play 80 games a year. There's a lot of baseball.
Golly.
Yeah, for 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And so like, like they have all this repetition and they're so fundamentally sound and they're good. Like you could blame that, but you go home, you pick up the ball and you're like, Dad, help me. Grandpa, help me.
Yeah. So it's almost like when you get to that moment of rejection, it's a great exposure to know how much do I really want this? And for a lot of us, we could be wasting our time on things that we really don't want to do, but because it's easy, maybe we're still doing it.
Yep.
And because we don't like rejection, maybe we don't venture out or try different things, and it could be anything. Could be trying something new at a restaurant. You get something that maybe the meal's fine itself, but it's just not your flavor profile. You kind of have that sense of disappointment, that sense of I wasted my money. But sometimes you discover, hey, this is really good. Sophia and I went to a fancy dinner. I think I talked about this, but the lobster bisque. So she tried lobster bisque for the first time and she loved it. She took that risk. Now she's eaten stuff off my plate before, like the oysters. She wasn't going to try that at all. There's no way. But it's that exposure and that experience that really teaches you, like, do I really want to fight for this? And if I'm not willing to fight for this, then why am I really doing it in the first place? Right. So it's also a little bit of that, because when things are going good, it's easy to kind of just get in a rhythm, right? It's easy to be comfortable. It's really hard to purposely go shake up your own comfort, which I think is such a huge part of being successful and looking at how can I shake up my own comfort? How do I, mess with this a little bit or tweak it? And we've talked about it several times, but you look at like the example of Tiger Woods and his swing. He purposely made himself a worse golfer for a time and a period to become a better golfer. And he's doing it on an international, global stage where he's being scrutinized for every little thing that he's doing. We get scrutinized by one random family member or a coworker that we don't like anyway, and it wrecks our world. Yeah. And so it's like, what a great opportunity to try to discover that moment of like, let me see how good I really am. And when we get those presented to us, we learn something. There's two kind of goofy stories. I don't know if we have time for them.
Go ahead. Or 10 minutes in.
Yeah, good. So we were playing in this beach volleyball league, and we obviously are, it was a co-ed league. We're out there just have fun and goof around and stuff. And Brittany loves volleyball. And so it's something fun that we could do together and with some friends. And so we go out and we're playing, and this team shows up that's literally like, they are literally a college volleyball team. And it was all girls. And it was just 4 of them versus 6 of us. And then halfway through the game, the 2 boys that were on their team showed up, and the 2 boys, they were athletic, they were taller, were worse than all the girls, hands down. These girls, every time the ball's on their side of the net, it was a bump, it was a set, and it was a rifle by 2 of these just very tall, very athletic women that are just hammering the ball. Like, they're not hitting the ball over, they are hammering the ball. Like, you can't even react to it. It's just coming so fast. It's like, maybe it bounces off of me, maybe we get lucky, whatever. And we got destroyed by them. And they didn't even need the other 2 guys. They could have beat us with 4 people. The very next game we played, the 6 of us immediately were a better team. Yeah. Because we just got schooled in, here's how this should look. Here's how you guys should function. And like, Brittany knows the game of volleyball really well, but for the rest of us, we don't know anything about it. So we're just out there, just have fun and hit the ball. And it was like, and so she'll try to say something, but that real exposure, like with, Rafe, hey buddy, we should probably go practice today. Well, I don't want to, or I want to play Minecraft, whatever. Then he really experiences rejection and he really gets exposed. Yeah. Now it comes to the crossroads of, am I going to start putting in the work? Yeah. And that visualization. There was we started talking about this last time, but an Ohio State football camp I went to between my freshman and sophomore year, I think. And the Ohio State football camp, I don't know if they still do it, but back at that time, it was huge. I mean, there were kids from all over, hundreds of kids. It was a big deal. And so the first day you register and then you do testing, like 40, dip, vertical, shuttle run, different things. So we're in the line for the 40-yard dash, and there's 2 lines, and both lines are going at the same time racing. And so there's, 4 or 5 of, my friends that, we all went to the same high school, and we're at the camp together to kind of get better or whatever. And there's this line beside us of all the other kids that are in line or whatever. And so we get closer to the front of the line and we start looking like, who are we going to race against? Right. So 2 of the kids were pretty darn good track guys. You know, one guy, he wasn't necessarily a 40 guy, but like 400, 800, he was amazing at. The other guy, he was great at the 100, 200. So they're like sizing guys up like, okay, let me see how fast I can run this, you know, and they're clocking it. And so I'm sitting there and so we start counting down. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I'm 7 people back. 1, 2, 3. And listen, not that you should ever judge a book by its cover, but at 14, 15 years old, when I saw a 6'3", skinny, look like grown man black dude, I automatically assumed he was way faster than me. Turns out that assumption was correct. We get down in this 40 and they say go. And I'm not joking. I come out of my stance and I lift my head. This fool is already 20 yards down the field. He ran a 4.4.
Oh, jeez.
I crossed the line. And my friends are in tears laughing at me because I literally had to look like the slowest human being at the entire camp, running behind a guy that ran a legit 4.4. And when I experienced that, it was a game changer for me.
So what'd you run? 5.2?
I ran a 4.9.
Oh, that's not bad.
But it's to the point of before that, at that age, the big thing is like get in the 4s. Like that's like a big deal. Like the first time you're on a 40 in the 4s. And I was always like, let's say like a 5.2 or 5.1 or something like that. But since that moment, it was like, I knew, well, I came out and I'm like, I literally thought like, gosh, what did I run? A 5.5? Like what number are they going to tell me? And my friends are over here laughing at me. Like, it's going to be ridiculous. And he said 4.9. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I honestly believe a huge part of that was I knew what I had to bring.
You're chasing Usain Bolt
to just get embarrassed by this guy. Like I had to bring my absolute very best to just get embarrassed and laughed at. Yeah. But it taught me like, oh, this is what it is. Like this is, and that rejection, although publicly it was humiliating because literally the entire camp's laughing at, you know, this slow white kid just running behind this guy that's just a legit stud. But I can't be mad with the results that I got. And it was only because I was literally fearful of just getting humiliated. Yeah. But that rejection, that exposure taught me a lot in the sense of, hey, you got to work for what you want.
So one thing I think that can do, and I think that's a really good lesson, is if, you know, we kind of going back to goals, right? You know, so like if you have, you have that kid that, that 6'3" kid in front of you, if we have something in front of us that we're going towards, or that goal we're going towards, or that model of what, like whatever it is, in business, in sports, in writing, in music, those things that we aspire to be, having that and working towards that, figuring out, like what that person is doing that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
And, just fundamentally trying to dissect that and try for ourselves to get better, I think is really, really, really important to me for just in general, you know, as it relates to being a dad, in real estate, Christian husband, all that stuff. We need to have those models in our life that we want to work towards. And I don't know, that's what I was thinking when you were talking about him.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. And then when you have that model and you have that mentor, you have that example.
Mentor.
That's
a good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
And those mentors, if they're worth anything, they realize their failures. They realize when they were in your shoes, and they're going to coach you up. You know what I mean? So get comfortable getting rejected. Like go figure it out.
Mentors and coaches.
Yeah.
We all need them.
Yes. Very valuable.
Help us learn from our failures and rejections.
Yep.
Wrapped it up. Right there.
Packaged.
It's a package delivered. This wraps up another episode of How Stupid People Succeed. I'm Josh Cooper. That's Jeremy Dunn. If you like this, you got anything from it, please share it. Comment on it. What else?
If you hated it, you should show us your hatred by commenting on it and sharing it as well.
Yes.
That really.
Or send us a message and we'll respond at some point appropriate. Years from now. That's all we got tonight. Wrap it up.